All right, everyone, another election year and the same old fucking mistakes from often the same people, although not entirely. It seems like there are a lot of people that are still underestimating Donald Trump. It's like people are constantly telling me, and some of these people are on the right, well, he hasn't fulfilled his goals. This isn't your time. Libertarianism, which somehow they conflate with Trump's populism, is dead. Ha ha ha. And some of it's dumbassery. It's people that think that very, very short-term, extremely limited echo chamber online-only style trends can be extrapolated to a long-term or even permanent trend within the larger population of the Western world. And it's very funny to see people make that mistake too, because this is what Occupy thought. This is what BLM thought. Have you heard of them lately? This is what all of these various groups have thought, that the Tea Party, which is now an afterthought, and most of the people that were once part of it no longer use that term openly because it's been, badly dated. I love watching people who don't understand analysis of politics, who don't understand how to analyze data or cultural trends, underestimate Trump massively. And some of these people want him to win. That's the funniest part. The funniest part is watching someone who, they don't like Democrats. They're usually not even a Republican, by the way. Most people at this point, I think, have started to get past the partisan bullshit. There's more than two parties. There's more than two ideologies. The parties are largely meaningless anyway for ideology, so who cares? But there are a lot of people who, they support Trump's sort of avowed policies more, or even in general, but they expect him to lose anyway. And it's funny because the reason for that is because their minds have been twisted by the same propaganda that's twisted the minds of the social justice warriors, which is for years and years now you've had a never-ending cavalcade of fake news from the corporate media saying that Trump has accomplished nothing, which is false, or at least his key goals, which is also false, that he's not taken seriously, which is false, that he's constantly doing things that are crazy, which is false. It's literally fake, but there are people that believe it, and some of these people are fairly well trained, academically, in a general sense, educated, intelligent individuals, rational individuals, but they've fallen prey to the nonstop blackpilling propaganda, which is really what it is. It's an attempt. You see this online, you see this in the corporate media if you bother to turn on the TV, which I don't know why you'd bother at this point, listening to the radio for some political talk show. Well, Trump said this, and here's top 10 reasons why it's dumb. We see this on a literally daily basis. You've got to understand, if you take a step back and you analyze reality for what it really is, you'll see the presidency's doing fine, the country's doing fine, wages are up, taxes are down, job market's generally expanding. We're not in any major foreign conflicts, at risk of Iran suddenly exploding. Trump took a step back, which I thought was good. I respect him for that. As far as domestic problems within the U.S., most of them are just, they boil down to the far left wants to censor and cancel everyone, and other people who are more reasonable don't want that, and this has caused problems within culture. It's not Trump's fault. It was there before Trump was in office. In fact, Trump was elected in part as a backlash against some of that earlier social justice warrior fucking shit. If you take a step back, none of that news really makes sense. None of the reporting that you see from the corporate media makes sense. It's funny to see people who are otherwise intelligent, and many people who aren't, suspect that Trump is going to lose. Because I'm looking at the numbers the same way I did in 2016. And I'm seeing people make all of these wild claims like Texas going blue, Arizona magically going blue, the never-Trumpers in the Senate are going to remove him from office anyway. I see the same things that are said by like the most weird, jaded neocon never-Trumpers, or even by like the Bernie far left, are even sometimes repeated by people that I know to be Trump fans. Like, they take it seriously. It's like, you swallowed the bait, dude. You've been black-pilled is what happened. You've been convinced that Trump has made no inroads on immigration. You're expecting 35 plus years of poor immigration policy to be reversed in only 3, with massive levels of obstruction from the Ninth Circuit and the legislature? Considering the amount of obstruction and the amount of shit he has to undo, Trump has done an absolutely A-plus job on immigration. The fact that he's gotten any fence or wall built, the fact that there's been any retrofitting, any purchasing of land along the border, any deportation, any increase in ICE agents, any stop to catch and release, he's accomplished all of these things, despite the fact that even part of his own party stood against him. That's a win. That's not a loss. It's really funny. The funniest shilling is when people who are on the left will go to a place where Trump generally enjoys support for that part of his platform and pretend to be black-pilled and demoralized themselves. They've been doing this for several years now. Well, no new wall has been built. Well, that's not true. That's simply a lie. Actually, it has. And there's been plenty of rebuilding of wall there that was subpar before. When you're replacing a 10-foot chain link fence with a 30-foot double barrier, that's an improvement. You know, sometimes it comes down to improving what's there, not just expanding it. Doesn't matter if you were to fill in all the gaps in our U.S.-Mexican border right now with Trump's new wall, it'd be great, but the problem is there would still be about 50% of it would still be the old style, an embankment and a single chain link fence or even just a vehicle barrier. Well, it doesn't do a fucking shit because people just go around the new wall that you built. You got to improve the whole border. That can't be done in just 3 years. And then it's really funny. These same demoralizing shills will say, well, Trump didn't work, haha, Tulsi 2020. It's like, yes, we want to vote for people who are open borders because Trump hasn't magically solved your problems instantly. I said back in 2015 I expected Trump to be a mild reformer, but that it would take him time to get anything accomplished. He has generally exceeded my expectations. Tax reform came quickly, and it was more effective than I expected, especially for the working and middle class. People have realized this. People who, like myself, who are personally impacted by this have realized that as a win. That's what some of these people don't understand, because many of them, they're either below or above that sort of level of society, the lower middle to upper middle class, especially the core of society that really benefited from the tax cuts. I have seen personally the community that I live in Vermont improve. It's an anecdote. I know that doesn't necessarily extrapolate to every community in the nation, but in my own personal community, there has been generally a level of improvement that has been greater than the improvement, at the norm under Obama. Better than the re-solidification of the economy then. At the height of the recession, God, every fourth property in Rutland was foreclosed on practically. It looked like a ghost town. I can't even remember how many people moved out of Rutland. It began to look like a failed city. Now it doesn't anymore. Now it looks just fine. Other than the mall, of course. Nothing to be done about that, dude. The malls are dying anyway. It doesn't matter if you're in a big city or a village. Your mall's probably half dead. Other than Burlington, somehow they've made it work. I don't exactly know how. But it's funny to see people ignore all the successes that have been had. VA reform, tax reform, the ripping apart of some of the regulatory systems, certainly. There has been more wall built. There's certainly been wall and fence retrofitted. There have been significant deportations. Trump has generally stood in the way of draconian legislation, has at least paid lip service to defending free speech online. Now, that's a special one for me. And this is one on which I am more, it's kind of 50-50 feelings here. Trump has done a good thing by coming out against tech censorship. Has he done enough actually on the ground to stop it? No. Does it take time and tact to do anything about it? Yes. And that's why for now I'm willing to forgive him, because when I see that every alternative wants to censor the internet, and he's the only one who is even discussing the possibility of not wanting that, I'm going to prefer Trump. And anyway, incumbent advantage, better the devil you know. Trump is not perfect. By the way, a lot of these people I've noticed, just bear with me here. There's a really strong correlation between people who tacitly supported Trump in 2016 and thought that he was going to be God Emperor, and being demoralized now and being like, well, maybe I'll support him, but I'm just not really with it, or maybe he'll lose. That's because you lionized him and you took the bait of thinking that he was perfect. You thought Trump being elected would magically solve all of your problems. This is why I'm a libertarian. Government can't do that. The fact is that Trump reducing government influence on your life through taxation, through trying to prevent the open borders policies of the globalists by, actually having a national border, his pro-liberty policies have positively impacted you, but it's not perfect. It's not a panacea to everything. He's not unilaterally capable of doing everything he wants to do anyway. He's not an emperor. He's just the chief executive. He's the president. There's a reason why we instituted the concept of a president and abandoned the concept of having a unilateral authority like a king who could dissolve parliament at a whim at least, and at most didn't even have one and just was a dictator. We abandoned that concept for a reason. Yes, it means that when you have someone like Trump who is generally good running things, it slows down the good they can do. It also helps prevent the bad of other people. The same the same sort of federal level bureaucratic systems and importantly the judiciary that are stymieing Trump with regards to getting the immigration thing accomplished also stopped Obama from granting blanket amnesty through executive action. We've got to understand that. There's a trade-off when we think about it. Generally, though, I would say going into 2020, you're going to see an incumbent Trump reigning over a good economy, regardless of all the uphill battle he has to wage against propaganda. He's going to be running against a neoliberal or an elderly socialist, because that's really at the top, that's all there is. Buttigieg at this point is an afterthought. He's raking in the cash, but it's not really helping him, and Bloomberg blows him out of the water on spending anyway, so they're sort of throttling each other. That leaves three people. Elderly socialist, and I think the average American is intelligent enough. I'm not black-pilled enough to think the average American's taken in by his sham. Elizabeth Warren, who's a neoliberal promising socialism without the name socialism, and a crazy dude who doesn't even fucking know where he is. If Trump loses, then it will be, it'll be really, really funny to see, actually. It would almost be amusing because it would be an admission that the Republican Party was led by someone who couldn't even beat a dude with dementia, who's probably going to be the one against him. I choose not to be so black-pilled. I choose to be a little hopeful. And when I'm analyzing the numbers, when I'm looking at the polls, the way they are, how impeachment has worked, how the economy is, I give Trump a very good chance of winning. It's not certain. It wasn't certain in 2016. The energy is beginning to pick up now that it's 2020. I think you're going to see it build. The Democrats are likely to be led by someone who has the charisma of a wet dish rag. Warren doesn't have any charisma any more than Biden does. And as far as Bernie Sanders, again, you're looking at the possibility of an elderly socialist being nominated and then dropping dead of a heart attack on a debate stage. What are the Democrats? I don't even know what they're thinking by allowing Bernie to continue to run. They should have just shafted him to begin with and said, no, you know what? You've dicked us around enough. You've never been a Democrat. You can't switch back and forth between D and I over and over. We're not going to let you run in our party. They should have just shafted him. Instead, they decided to let him in and schlong him like they did in 2016, and now he's making fucking problems for him. By the way, Elizabeth Warren would probably be in the lead right now if Sanders weren't in, which vexes her fans and Sanders fans. Very, very funny. No, I'm not demoralized, but I have noticed that very strong correlation between people who thought the world of Trump in 2016 being let down. Those of us who had more reasonable expectations for his finesse are generally happy with the job that he's done. He's doing the best he can. Give him a second term. Let him continue. Otherwise, you're cutting off your nose to spite your face voting for the Democrats anyway. Name a person in the Democratic Party right now who makes any fucking goddamn sense at all in general. Not on single issues. In general, do any of these people make sense? My answer is clearly no. That's about all. Peace out.